Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys. I'm your host, Daniel Torres Dwyer. Hi, Efrain Rosario. How are you doing?
Good, Daniel. Nice to be with you as always.
By the way, I'm Daniel Torres Dwyer. You're Efrain Rosario. Do you have another last name?
I guess you could say Vega is for my father's. Morales. Sorry.
Okay. Well, as probably the listeners know, but in Spain, we have the tradition of having two last names and in all the former colonies as well. So Efrain being Puerto Rican and American at the same time, I was wondering.
Yeah, I've streamlined my name for the for my American audience.
Good enough. Because if you're not used to it, it is quite different. So going to a very different place today, we're going all the way to Asia because big shopping peak season is here, and we're going to talk about a very specific occasion, which is Singles Day. Efrain, what can you tell me and the audience about it?
Well, I think for those in our audience who aren't familiar with it, and I think that number is getting smaller and smaller with every passing year, Singles Day is something that was created by Alibaba about 15 years ago now. And it started off as a response to Valentine's Day, in that people on Valentine's Day obviously get gifts for their loved ones. But if you happen to be single at the time, what do you do? So they created this shopping festival, this shopping holiday around Singles Day. And they very smartly said, what day should we do that? And they chose double ones. So 11 November 11th, 1111. So that's kind of how it came to be. So, and since then it's boomed. I mean, I think if you think about those who are familiar with Black Friday or Cyber Monday, and those are big shopping holidays in and of themselves, Singles Day is 2, 3, 4x the size of that. And a lot of that is obviously driven by the population numbers in China, but we're starting to see it expand to other geographies as well.
Yeah, so I was looking at the numbers, and according to Wikipedia, in 2021, which is the last year where we have like numbers, Alibaba and JD reached a combined Singles Day sales record of $139 billion. So it just talks to the scale of it.
Absolutely. So I think it's definitely something that should be on brand owners' calendars for sure.
Yeah. So today we're very lucky to have a guest that actually is a friend of both of us. Her name is Mia Sun, and she's heading up commerce for Greater China at the big glasses company, glasses in terms of like sunglasses and vision glasses, EssilorLuxottica. So very keen to have her here to talk about her experience, but also Singles Day in the past, currently, and in the future.
Hi everyone, my name is Mia Sun. I'm happy to be here. It's a really, really great show and a lot of followings I heard. Great opportunity for me. I'm actually heading Greater China Luxottica's company in e-commerce business and auto business.
So, well, thank you for joining us, Mia. And as we said, we all have one connection through a mutual shared friend. Shout out to our friend Kent Liu over in Bangkok. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role at Luxottica and what that entails, both in terms of like geography, but also in terms of function?
Yes. The Greater China region, it covers the mainland China and Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. That's my current jurisdiction. And that's geography. When it comes to the division, actually it's e-commerce business, all the mainland China e-commerce business, plus the O2O. We talk about O2O means the online to offline. How do we drive online and integration to offline as a new venture of the business? That's part of my jurisdiction as well. So everything you can think about under Luxottica's business in geography, in technology, in digital, that's under my realm.
Excellent.
And if people are not, sorry?
No, you're coming into the business in a time of transformation as well, when Luxottica is doing the big merger with Essilor as well.
Exactly. That's why they try to attract me to join this big transformation. I was having a great time at Lululemon, but this is actually one of the kind with the big conglomerate try to merge each other and not eat each other alive and try to have a smooth transformation, as so-called it. And we have been in this journey for 2 years.
Great. And speaking of Lululemon, so that was the company that you left to join EssilorLuxottica. But obviously, I mean, looking at your LinkedIn, Microsoft, Coach, Tencent, Yahoo, like a lot of very big brands. Could you give us like a short summary of how you got to the current position that you have through all these companies?
Okay. I have over 20 years working experience. It's pretty simple, aside from those big brand names, as you called it. It's basically one side is all the brand consumer companies, like you can understand Coach, Lululemon, and Luxottica. The other side is pretty much about the tech business, as you understand about the early days of Yahoo, then Microsoft, then Tencent. So my time over 20 years is pretty simple and balanced. One side, consumer brands, the other side, tech conglomerate. And what's the difference between these two? A lot of people have been asking me about the questions. I would say one side as a brand consumer company is working on the magic. And the other side as a tech conglomerate working with data is working with logic. So it's kind of a shuffle between magic and logic and trying to get a balance. This is probably in a nutshell about my work experience, in a nutshell of my life as well.
You know, and it's interesting to hear you describe it that way, Mia. I think there's a lot of companies out there in present day who are looking for that balance of magic and logic as well. So I'm sure that our audience is really keen to hear more about that. I did want to ask you a question, though, and Daniel alluded to it in the fact that you used to work for Yahoo. What initially drew you to e-commerce at the very start of your career?
That's a really, really good and important question. I think, you know, when I was at Estee Lauder company, you know, this cosmetic company is every woman, every girl's dream. I was having a great time. And I actually, I had a chance to study at UCLA, and that's California. And then that's actually the .com and business, digital, everything is booming. Everybody talking about on the street. You buy an ice cream, you had a cup of coffee. Everybody was talking about. If you don't talk about .com, it's like you're out of the date. So that's kind of that sensation was kind of really booming over to really influence me. I was like, I guess I'm personality-wise, I was an adopter. And I was like, okay, this is something is happening. I do believe it's going to be something different and changing the chapter. I want to get on this boat. So I got a chance to go to Yahoo, and I told my boss at Estee Lauder, say, I'm going to Yahoo. And the first question my boss was asking me, say, are you kidding me, Mia? Why do you want to change this golden career to going to become an IT? So I think that was 2003. And I actually got into the boat very early because, you know, I got influenced over the ice cream or over a coffee. But my boss or every other in the cosmetic back then in 2003, they don't believe it. They still think they couldn't understand a girl or lady with this golden parachute and choosing the IT job. This is how it started. And once I studying and I understand all the data, I get immersed with all the magic to balance with the data. You know, we used to, if you guys still remember the brochure, to post it, and we try to take the text, the SMS to make sure how many people really understand our new products. With the internet and the .com business, we have all the number analytical. I was like walking in the data of the ocean and telling me about what consumer behaviors are about. And I find it very, very eye-opening. And once I step in, I just couldn't get out. I think that's one thing for me to join the .com business. But how did I drive that to the e-com business? Because I actually started as a marketer. What does marketer do is to really telling the consumer a great storytelling why our brand and why our product is more relevant to you. But without the data and without the business, I can't really wiggle that. But the e-com business allow a marketer like me to transfer from only a storytelling to really connect the dot about business building with all the digital technology tools, with all the platforms, and to really connect the consumer from end to end, make the whole cycle. That's I love the beauty of the e-commerce business. Yeah. I know exactly the person who walked into the door and the person who checked out or not checked out, are satisfied or unsatisfied.
Efrain, you deal with a lot of data in your job. And in this time of omnicommerce, do you sometimes find yourself really not sure with what actions to take?
Absolutely. I think as the amount of e-com performance data only continues to grow, a lot of brands are going to face this challenge.
Well, you should check CommerceIQ. They're a pioneer that are helping consumer brands win in e-commerce by optimizing digital shelf and helping grow market share by driving real-time incrementality for retail media and maximizing Amazon sales, share, and profit.
Sounds really intriguing. How can people find out more?
Well, you should join the hundreds of FMCG brands that are already winning in e-commerce with CommerceIQ. It's as easy as visiting commerceiq.ai/FMCG guys or following the link in the show notes to schedule a demo and download their free AI-powered Chrome plugin to optimize your Amazon listings. Don't miss out. Take action today to unlock your AI-powered e-commerce success with CommerceIQ. Yeah, so probably at the time it seemed like a bit countercultural and breaking the rule book of marketing, but actually this more data-driven approach is what everybody's doing 20 years later, right?
20 years later, exactly. You got that right.
And I know that later, so it's been interesting because you went to Yahoo, then you went to Tencent, which is in the retail, e-commerce retail space, right? Then Coach, which is in pure apparel, like high-end apparel, then Microsoft again on the tech space. What was so you mentioned marketing as like understanding the consumer. Was that the common thread that allowed you to have like a transferable skill to go from industry to industry, especially industries which apparently are so different?
I think marketing is always in my heart about why I like it the most. And Tencent is actually equivalent of Yahoo back then. It's just a China version. It's just a bigger version of Yahoo, because that was a very interesting transition when Yahoo is trying to go in global and going to China. It hit the wall, and it has to have a local giant to be actually mushrooming due to actually certain consideration. That's why Yahoo didn't actually got successful in China. And who got really successful is actually Tencent. That's how I actually emerged myself from Yahoo to Tencent, because I really believe that, I think that's 2008. I think China has a potential. I want to go into China. I happen to speak the language. I happen to really try to tap the market. And that's where I can land it. Tencent is the right way for me to go. So I moved from Yahoo to Tencent smoothly. And after Tencent, it was probably almost 10 years of my, you can call .com Harvard Business School enough for me for almost 10 years. I want to go back to the brand business to, remember we talked about building a brand in the beginning. I was at Estee Lauder. So I really want to help the brand with all my 10-year Harvard Business Tech experience to tell them and teach them, build everything about digital from scratch. So I went to Coach. And afterwards, the Microsoft, it's not the Microsoft Tech, what you talk about. It's a Microsoft Retail. Back then, why I joined Microsoft Retail? Because Microsoft Retail looked at Apple Retail doing mushrooming business, they want to be an Apple retail number 2. They want somebody who has a brand business mindset, a digital mindset to help them to do transformation. Just when you talk about transformation, I think I look at myself. I really love to do it. We go myself and roll my sleeve to really get myself immersed with the transformation. That's all my careers are about. I don't do a status quo about what the traditional career path. I could easily become sitting in New York office with Estee Lauder, holy grail brand, but I make a loop, then come back with this about consumer brand. This is about transformation. Maybe I still come back with the brand business, but the way I have come across is very different with stepping on the single marketer role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting to hear you talk about, like you said, you were right in the heart of the tech boom in the early 2000s, being in California. And now it's interesting to see how that's evolved as to now I always tell people, like, we need to look east, not west, for a lot of the innovation. And I think given I really see you as a visionary in terms of like some of the moves that you've made. And now that you are, in the new heart of where a lot of this innovation is happening in APAC, what new tech are you seeing in China and I guess more broadly in Asia Pacific that you see will be expanding into other markets in the near future?
That's a very good question. I think there are two things that's really happening right now. We're just working in the midst of the Double 11 Singles Day. If everybody understands China, everybody probably heard about Singles Day, Alibaba, Jack Ma, and how people create the Singles Day, how people become like a sensation of the shopping season. This year, interesting us, Alibaba's Double 11, Tmall business, normally from a brand consumer business, at least 50% of the business is top off from Alibaba platform. And this year, we see TikTok is driving 30% of the business, is eating Alibaba alive. Wow. They have the data on the daily basis. We are seeing the next e-commerce 3.0 with video streaming business to replace the traditional everything you want put into the shopping cart and the Singles Day you check out and leave and go. No, we don't see that. I'm sorry, gentlemen. We see that TikTok is eating the old wolf alive. So video streaming is definitely a hit. I think that's number one. And how does that happen? I think there's everybody knows TikTok without doubt. And the second thing is on TikTok, on YouTube, all the top influencers, they can do cross-sell and upsell as well, except for the traditional platform. So how these two things converge together about the future commerce business is really grabbing the attention as a brand business builder to really take into a next year or 3-year plan consideration.
Yeah. You know what I find funny, Mia, is that you're calling Alibaba traditional, right? Which just comes to show how fast this market is evolving, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because I think, remember we talked about the giant of Alibaba, and then we talk about how consumer pulse is different based on all the data we can see as a digital person, as an e-commerce person. We really see that happening. It's the second, it is big, it's still impeccable, but we do see new kids on the block and actually it's booming like crazy. That's just the reality.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more about how the TikTok shopping experience works? Because one, from my perspective here of what I know and what I've experienced on TikTok is that you just like watch videos and go from one to the other. Like, how does the actual shopping experience work?
if you check out, I don't want to do advertise here, but you can check out Ray-Ban.com.
TikTok, if you want to advertise on here, just get in touch.
No. You check out Ray-Ban, and there's 2 ways of you get immersed with Ray-Ban, right? You just like video streaming. Let's say you think about sunglasses, I'm thinking about buying a sunglass. Potentially, I'm going on the beach and hang out with my girlfriend on the yacht or something. So I really need something to actually gear me up. And you happen to think about it. And once you click on that, and you happen to see the Ray-Ban official account, and we're doing influencer, telling you how do you do the mix and match when you go on yacht, when you go on the beach, and how to do that. People like that. And when they like the influencer, when they like the host, like you were narrating with me and that interaction, and you have the click to buy button about, let's say, Daniel, you just had the sunglasses on your face, and I was checking with you. I was talking to you, hey, with your figure, maybe with a little triangle on the lens is better, or maybe with you on the t-shirt, maybe you can have a different color of the lenses. And you say, hey, that makes sense. And you take out another one. And people really like it. They will actually cheer for you. They will actually have those icons, and they can click to buy. That's how it is going.
So you can buy on TikTok per se. There's like a checkout there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Due to the video streaming and due to the interaction with me and you and hosting and interacting, you can have the click to buy.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. What about how is the current economic situation affecting Singles Day? Maybe it would be good to get your perspective on the economic situation in China right now, because seen from here, at least for me, it's confusing.
Why are you confused?
Well, because I don't like this. There's like news that says it's slowing down, and there's news that says it's not going well, and there's news that says yes, it's still a growing economy, right? So it's all relative, right? Depends on if you compare it with a 20% growth or you compare it with like stagnation of Europe.
Makes sense. But I think it's noticeable everywhere. Globally, its economy is slowing down, right? So that's the fact. We have to accept and embrace it, because the world and the globe or the earth needs some other energy to do with some other things rather than the economy so far. However, under this year about the Singles Day number for my business as an accessory lifestyle business is still doing quite well as we anticipated. It's probably 5% more of what we actually compare versus our goal. I think there's 2 reasons. For APAC, I think people just got out of COVID in APAC region, and this in Q1 we were still under the COVID influence in Q1. Maybe not compared to Europe, but in Q1 APAC still get a hit. So there will be a little bit outbound after people can really got out the COVID and people start traveling slowly, not a lot, slowly. So like maybe APAC, within APAC travel is probably more than go to Europe and the US in this year. So we see that anticipation is much brighter than what we used to think about year. I think last year was not good because of the COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think if, like you said, this is something that we're seeing across the globe. And if what we've seen in other countries holds true, like you said, as you're still kind of in the midst of a lockdown, obviously spending is stagnated. But then right after that, you get the revenge spending phenomenon where people have said, I've been cooped up and been restricted for so long that all of a sudden, once those guardrails are off, then you do see a rebound. So it sounds like we're actually shaping up to have a pretty fruitful Singles Day this year. I'm curious to get your perspective as somebody who works for a global brand like Luxottica and has worked for other global brands in your past. What do you see as the opportunities for those global brands in Singles Day, particularly for those brands who maybe aren't as, let's say, experienced in the China market? What do you see the opportunities for those brands being in this Singles Day?
I think we can think about this in two perspectives. I think Singles Days is probably very well known in Asia, in APAC, not as much as Europe and the US. Because US and Europe, I don't know about Europe, because Black Friday is probably owned and dominated by the US. It's the same thing, right? It's a shopping festival. What about Europe? I'm not sure Europe has Black Friday or any other days.
I mean, Daniel, you can weigh in on this as well. What I've seen in the time that I've lived in Europe these past 8 years is that it went from being very unknown to it's become a shopping holiday or a shopping festival in Europe as well. I think Singles Day is probably there's less awareness around Singles Day from the general consumer in Europe. But I think if you talk to people who work in FMCG brands, I think they're well aware of it because I think they know they have to play in that space.
Right.
Yeah. I think that the two big events in Europe are Black Friday and also Cyber Monday has become pretty big. And that's like what really kicks off the big Christmas season, which is the more traditional event, which is not like a day, but it's more like a few weeks.
Okay. So let's just say Cyber Monday, Black Friday, Singles Days. They are all equivalent about the shopping festival, shopping sensation. And what's for brand owners, what can we do to utilize this kind of sensation as like consumers' attention are here? I think there are two things. What we do successfully is we actually build out the brand story about how, like 3 months ago, we think about the exclusive products item. What you can have. And we actually slowly seeding you and make you have a wish list. I think that's what we do. We make you have a wish list. We actually do not only have the discount product as like, 50% off, 35% off, 20% off. That's not only that. We actually build a champion list of the wish product, maybe the best product of the year, maybe the best innovative product of the year. We actually utilize this eyeball sensation and to launch it and make you lure around it, make you draw around it. And then we utilize this sensation to really capture you and net you. That's one way we play with that against all others by big promotions. Number two, what we do is we talked about earlier about the video streaming vehicle. So we used like a month ago, say today is November 3rd, which we meet today. We started from October 4th already, a month ago. We started using TikTok as or any other platform. We use the video clipping to have an interaction with the consumers or the brand and mind alike. And those are the two things what we have done successfully this year and different from the rest of the year. And I think those are how we actually have a little bit success, 5% plus as what our original goal so far. Knock on the wood, it's pretty good. So far, so good. So I think that's something to share with the common crowd.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear you talk about, that it doesn't just... You don't just all of a sudden flip the switch beginning of November in anticipation of Singles Day. These are a lot of the things you're mentioning date back months, and it's something that you really have to think about several months in advance to prepare.
Yeah, because those Cyber Monday, Black Friday, Singles Day, you don't consider as the one-day harvest, right? You need to plant the seed. And the consumer attention are very actually limited. So how do you actually make sure the thread is connected and the punchline is consistent? Mm-hmm. And how do you create a dream list? Why do people want to come? Why in this kind of shopping sensation, why do I want to buy? You kind of have to speak to their brand and pick out the brand and mess with the brand. Oh, maybe I really need a sexy and foxy sunglasses, for example. I'm not trying to sell anything. You can say a refrigerator as well.
Yeah. Do you think that consumers typically go into Singles Day already with a shopping list? Or is it more like an impulse-driven type of experience where they just browse whatever shop, whatever social network, and they're just like buying opportunities that they find there?
If you want to do a big business, that type of the different consumers you have to take all in. That's why you have to compartmentalize. There are people who make way early shopping list. There are people who only check out in that single days. So what kind of offering depends on different kind of habitat of the consumers. You can create a different kind of portfolio and different kind of assortment and different kind of list and different kind of activities to suit them. I think tailor-made of the segmentation are very important as well.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So we've seen Singles Day like really grow in the years. Like it became, I don't know when you would know better when it started, but what has it been around for 10 years or something like that? Approximately?
Oh yeah, more than 10 years. More than 10 years.
But maybe in the last, 5-6 years, it's become like real, like this huge phenomenon with record numbers. Everybody, as Efrain said, in the industry knows about it. Has it hit its peak? Like, is this like Singles Day? Like, is it reached like its height? Or do you see it even growing more either within China or in the markets around it, like Southeast Asia, or even in Europe or the US? How do you see it evolving as a concept?
I would say Singles Day, the concept will probably still dominate in APAC. That's for sure. But the number is not going to be the past 5 years as like a skyrocketing high for sure, right? We all have our limit and it's going to be still impactful, but it's still not going to be like a double-digit number as well, or like a triple-digit number as everybody anticipated. There's no way. The curve could be a probably more benign curve. And it could be still a consumer attention. It's just the point of what we need to realize that what can we do differently year over year, because consumers' habitat and consumers' behavior are also changing. But consumers are always looking for something, and brands are always trying to connect with consumers. This is the event and the sensation, and that two ecosystem will collide to meet. And so there will be always needs there, just like Black Friday will be always a Black Friday as in the top of your brand.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me, kind of, again, drawing that comparison to Black Friday, as we were referring to before, which is that it eventually migrated across the Atlantic from its home market of the U.S. into other markets who are now celebrating it as a shopping holiday in those markets as well. And I think you started to allude to it, which is that obviously the birthplace of Singles Day is China and some of its neighboring markets. Do you see it, like, for example, in terms of, like you said, the days of double-digit growth, or the kind of growth that we saw previously? It's not possible just given the curve. But do you see any sort of geographic expansion in regards to, like, are you seeing more consumers coming from other Asia Pacific markets, like in Southeast Asia, or are you starting to see more of that come from people who are in Europe or other markets as well?
I think Southeast Asia is actually embracing Singles Day for sure. That's why it will become an APAC sensation of all time, at least for down the road for 3 to 5 years for sure. But if you talk about shopping holiday in the Europe or in the US, it has existing about Cyber Monday and Black Friday. A consumer or the brand doesn't need another Singles Day. I think because you don't need to get your best refrigerator 3 times a year, maybe 1 time a year. That's good enough for you.
Yeah.
That's my take.
True. That's true. That's true. There's a lot of those holidays that are packed into a short 2 months of the year prior to the Christmas holiday, for sure. Well, Mia, this has been great. I mean, it's lots of things to digest in terms of some of the knowledge you've imparted on us. And like I said at the beginning, I think you've been able to really, you have a vision in regards to where things are going in terms of like how you've chosen the places that you've gone in your career. And I want to ask you one last question. And this is a question that we ask all of our guests. And instead of looking into the future, I'm actually going to ask you to look back. And if you could go back to the start of your career, given everything you've learned over the great experiences you've had at all these companies, what would be the one piece of advice you would give yourself at that point, at the beginning of your career?
Wow. A great question. I think if I get back to myself, because I'm actually always choosing a different trajectory from the rest of the girls, I'm always be spoken. I'm actually very naive. I will make a lot of mistakes. I'm not choosing the right path. So I can't really use my experience as to really illustrate for the rest of the girls or the boys. But I have something come along. I think if you really know what you're doing, you really want to do something, you should do it. You should do the ass of your doing, part of my language. You should try all the flash of doing the best out of what you can do. Trying to be among the people, among all you know, all your network, to be the best out of what you are, you know what you are doing, because that's really rare. A lot of people, they don't really know until 40s or late 30s, or some people don't know what they really want to do at the age of 50. They just follow the curve. But so for people who really know, that's my advice. Just being the best out of, since you know that already. You will get bruises, you will get a slash, you will get whatever, you will get a burn. But I think that's kind of like a Northern Star. You just keep going. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you want to do, that is fine. It's perfectly normal. But follow whatever the trend is. And going through that trend and figure this out, maybe 3 years down the road, this is not what I want to do. It's a great learning, but at least it will get you to the next trend. Maybe the next trend comes along. You still take a dive because you have the experience, and it's so cool. Everybody understand what you were doing, even though you know this by 3 years, you don't know what you want to do.
This was Mia San from EssilorLuxottica, Greater China. Very interesting conversation, Efrain. Singles Day is coming in just a few days. What are your main takeaways from this conversation?
Lots of things to unpack in terms of what Mia shared with us. I think for me, first and foremost, I love how she expressed the need for magic and logic in regards to what marketers can do when they work in that e-com space. And it sounds like Singles Day is actually almost like the perfect vehicle to be able to do that in terms of the kinds of activities you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the sheer scale of it just makes it an occasion that every company should be looking at, no?
No doubt. And I think it's also interesting to note the increasing role of TikTok in Singles Day.
Fascinating. I don't know if like the live stream type of shopping will ever take off in Europe, but in China, it's absolutely crazy. Like that is like the place to be. TikTok drives 30% of the business. So we talked about the numbers at the beginning, $139 billion, 30% of that. How much is that? Like 40, like 50 million, no, 40 million.
Well, I
40
think
billion, sorry.
Yeah, it's a massive number. And I think to your question or to your point, we do see live streaming in, let's call it, certain occasions or with certain brands. So I know Walmart has experimented with it. I know other brands have done live streaming events, but it's nowhere near the magnitude of what it is in China and in Asia. It's mind blowing to me. And what was fascinating to me was to hear Mia refer to the increasing role of TikTok and how it's replacing quote unquote traditional e-com in the form of Alibaba. And for us, I think thinking of Alibaba as traditional or the old school is just, it's a mindset shift for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Alibaba has been here around for what, 20 years max. And here we talk about traditional when we refer to probably like 100 years or something like that. Also, I thought it was interesting, and I think in the future would like to explore more about, like, yes, it is a one-day occasion, but it's not a one-day thing in terms of preparation. But it makes me wonder, like, how much work is like analytics and data, and how much is like the creative side, like really like doing like a very good creative promotion that really like raises interest and creates shopping at the end.
Yeah, it was the way that Mia was describing it, I thought was spot on, because it does really, in essence, set up Singles Day the same way that you would think about any other pillar marketing campaign that you're running, whether that happens to be around back to school or whether that happens to be around a sporting event like the World Cup or the Olympics. I mean, this is the different thing about this one is that it happens every year. Yeah. Right. It's like, I mean, every year, Singles Day falls on the exact same day. Yeah. But that also means that well in advance when it's going to happen as a brand owner, which means you need to start planning months ahead.
So the brand owners that are listening to us, which are a lot of them listen to us, make sure that, I mean, probably a bit too late for this year, but make sure you prepare for 11/11 next year.
Exactly.
So thanks, Efrain, for joining. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. Hope you learned a lot about Singles Day as much as we did. Remember to follow us on LinkedIn if you're not yet. You can also leave us a review here. This would be extremely helpful. Remember also to check our sister podcast at the other side of the Atlantic, the CPG guys, who are speaking everything around commerce in that part of the world. And we'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG guys. Have a great day.